Once you try carrying your water bottle like this, you won't want to go back. Hi, I'm Victoria, and I help you sew practical, stylish accessories that are ready for real life and real adventures. Here's what you'll need. Fabric for the outer layer, fabric for the lining, a small piece of fabric for the bottom straps, or you can swap those for nylon webbing if you have it, a simple strap adjuster, and nylon webbing for the shoulder strap. If you don't want to use nylon webbing at all, you can make the main strap from fabric using the same technique that I'll show you for the bottom. Just know it'll take longer and it won't be as durable. Webbing is strong, durable, and made to hold up over time, especially with all the movement and friction from daily use. If you need help finding any of these, I've linked what I use down in the description below. Now before you cut anything out, give your fabric a good press. Wrinkles could throw off your measurements and make things harder to line up later, so it's always worth doing. For the regular size I'm showing you today, which fits a standard slender bottle, you'll want to cut 3 pieces of fabric. Cut one outer piece that's 10 inches wide by 8 1/4 inches tall. Cut one lining piece that's 10 inches wide by 7 3/4 inches tall. And 2 bottom strap pieces, each 6 3/4 inches wide by 4 inches tall. If you're using a different bottle size, I've included a slightly larger size and a mini version in the printable pattern. Each one is already measured out and ready to cut. The strap dimensions and attachment points are different for each size, and figuring out where to place the straps can be a little bit tricky. So if you'd like all 3 sizes with clearly marked placement guides and printable instructions, you can grab the pattern through the QR code on screen or in the description below. We'll start by prepping our fabric pieces with a few folds. Take the lining piece and fold the bottom edge a 1/4 inch towards the wrong side of the fabric. Press it, then fold it up again. No need to measure, just fold it twice and press it in place. Clip or pin the fold and set the lining aside. Now do the same thing with the outer piece. Fold the bottom edge a 1/4 inch towards the wrong side. Press, fold again, and press and pin it in place. Then repeat that same process at the top edge too, so both the top and bottom are double folded. Pin it in place and set it aside. Now we'll prep the bottom strap pieces. Take one strip and fold it in half lengthwise. Press the crease, then open it back up. Next, fold both long edges in toward the center crease and press again. Then fold it back in half one more time along the original crease and give it a firm final press. Pin that in place and repeat that with the second strap. If you're using nylon webbing for the bottom straps instead of fabric, you can skip this step and the next step. Just set those aside until we attach them later. Next, head over to your sewing machine and stitch the bottom straps. Start by sewing a straight stitch down the open side of the strip to close the opening. Then, sew a second line of top stitching down the folded side. This helps secure the shape and makes both sides look even. Now, finish the short ends with an overedge stitch. If you don't have that, a zigzag stitch works too. Just make sure the outer swing of the zigzag hits right at or just over the raw edge. This part will get hidden inside of the holder, so it doesn't need to be perfect. We just want to prevent fraying. Repeat all of that with the second strap. Now we're going to sew down the folds we pressed earlier, starting with the lining piece. Sew a straight line near the bottom fold. Just make sure your stitch lands far in enough to actually hold the fabric in place. You don't need to measure it exactly, just aim for somewhere between the folded edge and the inside crease. Then, do the same thing with the bottom of the outer piece. Stitch across the fold to secure it. Now leave the top edge of the outer piece folded and pinned for now. We'll come back to it later. Now we're going to pin the bottom straps to the lining layer. This part takes a little bit of precision, but I'll walk you through it. Start by folding your lining piece in half lengthwise, right sides together. You're not sewing yet. This is just temporarily to form a cylinder so we can position the straps accurately. Clip or pin it just at the edge. No need to pin the whole thing. We'll open it back up in a minute. Now, grab one of your bottom straps and mark a line 1 inch from each short end. That's where the strap will line up with the bottom of the lining. I'm using a disappearing ink pen for this, the kind that vanishes after a couple of days, so there's nothing to wash out. It's my favorite way to mark fabric. I'll put the link in the description if you're interested. Next, take the first strap and pin the left edge of the strap right next to the seam, using the line you marked to line it up with the bottom fold of the lining. I recommend pins for this part. They'll keep the strap from shifting while you sew. Next, fold the lining in half again to find the center. Then pin the second strap so its left edge lines up with that center point. Now flip the lining over so that the pinned seam is on the right. Take the first strap, the one we pinned near the seam, and pin its other end at the far left edge. That puts it at the center of the lining piece overall. Next, take the second strap and line it up with the right edge of the piece that's already pinned on the other side. You'll feel for it through the fabric. This helps form a clean X in the center when your holder is assembled, which is key to holding the bottle securely. Now, go ahead and open the lining piece back up. It won't lay perfectly flat with the straps pinned, but that's okay. We just need access to sew the pins in place. Now, if this part feels a little confusing, you're not alone. It's one of the trickier sections to measure and line up, especially if you're adjusting the size. That's why I included placement guides in the pattern. If you want to skip the guesswork, it's all marked out for you. Let's head over to the machine to sew the straps. I am starting with the strap on the far right. I've rotated the fabric so that the bottom of the lining is facing away from me. This just makes it easier to sew. Begin at the bottom right corner of the strap and sew a straight stitch up to the top corner. Then pivot and sew around all four edges, creating a rectangle. Once the rectangle is complete, sew 2 diagonal lines across the strap to form an X. This gives the base extra strength and keeps the bottle secure. You can backstitch over any edges or reinforce the base again if you like. I usually go over at least part of it twice. Here's a quick tip. When you're starting your first stitch, you can sew carefully right over the pin. Just turn the hand wheel manually to avoid hitting the pin with your needle. I leave that first pin in until I've sewn most of the way down one side so the strap stays lined up. Once it's secure, you can pull it out. Now go ahead and repeat that same process for the other 3 strap ends. Now it's time to close up both the lining and the outer layers. First, take your lining piece and fold it in half again, right sides together, just like we did earlier. This time we're sewing it shut, so go ahead and pin the full open edge. Now grab your outer piece and do the same. Fold it in half, right sides together, and pin along the open edge. Before you pin the outer piece, make sure to unfold the top edge just once. Leave one fold in place. We'll fold that top edge back down later to finish it off. So you want just a single fold here while we sew. Now take both pieces to the sewing machine and stitch along the open edge. I'm using an overedge stitch here. It's strong, secure, and it finishes the edge while keeping the seam flat and low bulk. If your machine doesn't have an overedge capability, a zigzag stitch works fine, same as earlier in the tutorial. Now just a tip, a traditional seam might be tempting here, but it'll bulk up the holder and make the fit too tight. So stick with a narrow edge finish if possible. Now it's time to combine the outer piece and the lining into one finished holder. Start by turning the outer piece right side out. Then slide it over the lining piece. You're nesting them together so the wrong sides are touching and the right sides are facing out. I like to start by lining up the seams at the back. Once those are aligned, you can work your way around the circle from there. Focus on getting the bottom edges lined up as evenly as possible. The top edge is more forgiving, but you'll really want the base to be smooth. Use pins here and don't be shy with them. This part can shift while you're sewing, so the more security, the better. Once the bottom is pinned, smooth the fabric toward the top to make sure there are no wrinkles. Then fold the top edge of the outer fabric down over the raw edge of the lining. Remember how we left one fold in place earlier? Now that extra fold hides the edge completely. Pin that top fold all the way around. Now we'll sew around both the top and bottom edges to join the layers together. Because the opening is so small, you probably won't be able to fit the whole thing around your machine arm, so you'll need to work around it in small sections to avoid sewing the opening shut. Take your time here. I usually sew an inch or 2 at a time, sometimes less. Then stop, lift the presser foot, and carefully adjust everything underneath before moving on. Be especially careful near the straps. You don't want to accidentally sew them into the seam. I shift the fabric as needed before each one, always checking to make sure I'm only sewing one layer. It takes patience, but working slowly and adjusting often will keep things aligned and help you avoid any unwanted connections. Once the bottom is secure, repeat that same process at the top edge. This part is a little easier, but I still recommend going slow and keeping an eye on what's underneath. Now, before we get to the final step, if this tutorial has been helpful, please hit the like button and subscribe. Hit the notification bell for more sewing projects just like this one. And if you haven't grabbed your pattern yet, it's linked below, and feel free to drop any questions in the comments. All right, it's time to install the shoulder strap, and once this part's done, your bottle holder is ready to go. So first, cut your main strap. If you want to use a shorter length that hangs like a purse, cut it to 38 inches. For a crossbody strap, like I'm using here, cut it to 55 inches, or just fold it in half and trim it to 27.5 inches. I'm using nylon webbing for the strap. If you'd rather make a strap from fabric, you can use the same folding method that we used for the bottom straps. Just cut your strip to 4 inches wide and whatever length that you want, and consider adding interfacing to give it extra strength. If you don't have nylon webbing, I've linked the kind I use in the description. It comes in a roll, so it's way more economical than buying it one strap at a time. You'll get enough to make several projects. You'll also need a short piece of strap, about 3.5 inches long, to attach your adjuster hardware. To find where the straps go, fold your bottle holder in half at the seam. This puts the seam at the back and helps you find the center point on each side. Mark the center point on both sides. These will be your anchor points for attaching the straps. Take the short strap and slide it through the bottom slot of your adjuster. Fold it in half around the bar and mark 1 inch from each end of the folded strap. Line up the 1 inch marks with the top edge and sew it down using a box and an X stitch, just like we did with the bottom straps. This part is thick, so pins may not work well. Just hold it carefully in place while you sew. And since this stitch will show on the outside, use a thread that blends well with your fabric. If your fabric has a pattern, try to match the main color where you're sewing. Now, take your long strap, mark 1 inch from one end, and attach it the same way on the opposite side of the holder, lining up the mark with the top edge and sewing it down securely with a box and an X stitch. To finish, take the free end of the strap and thread it through the top slot of the strap adjuster from inside to outside, then down through the middle slot from outside to inside. Fold the raw edge of the strap under about 1/2 inch and sew it down securely with a rectangle. Make sure your strap isn't twisted and that the raw edge of the long end sits on the inside of the strap loop when it's worn. That keeps the finished look clean and prevents awkward flipping. Now, if you're worried about the ends of your nylon strap fraying, there are a couple of options. You can seal them with a little bit of fray check or by lightly burning the ends. But if you do the latter, make sure you do it before sewing on the strap pieces to the holder and be extremely careful. And don't overdo it because it will harden the end and make it difficult to sew over.
And please don't start a fire in your home.
And that's it! Your water bottle holder is ready to be used. It's lightweight, snug, and ready for everyday adventures. Thanks for watching. Bye!